Your inner talking is the workshop of creation. Listen closely. What you whisper to yourself in silence is far louder in the heavens than all the noise of the world. The world you see outside is nothing but the echo of the words you repeat within. Man is always in conversation with himself, yet he rarely stops to notice the nature of that dialogue. Every complaint, every doubt, every anxious rehearsal of failure is planting seeds in the fertile soil of imagination. And just as surely as the earth brings forth harvest, so your inner words will return to you as circumstances, events, and people. Understand this law. Nothing enters your life except that which first took root in your silent speech. If you would change your world, you must change your conversation with yourself. Speak as though your desire were already fulfilled. Walk in the assumption that it is so. Persist in this inner dialogue until it takes on the tones of reality. Do not wait for the outer world to give you permission to rejoice. Give thanks within now. Speak words of life, of success, of love, and the world will bow to the authority of your inner command. This is the secret. You are always prophesying your future by the conversation you sustain in the present. Guard it, direct it, beautify it. For as you shape your inner talk, you shape the world that greets you. Inner talking is the true creator of reality, because every word you speak within yourself sets the tone for what must unfold without. The silent dialogue you maintain is not idle, it is the seedbed of creation, shaping moods, attitudes, and events. When you constantly affirm lack, fear, or limitation, life mirrors these conditions back to you with precision. But when your inner speech is aligned with faith, fulfillment, and the assumption of your desire realized, the outer world bends to reflect it. All creation begins with the unseen conversation you nurture in the privacy of your mind. Outer life is the echo of inner words. For nothing manifests in the visible world that was not first spoken in the silence of thought. The conversations you sustain with yourself, though hidden from the eyes of others, resound through the corridors of creation and return as the conditions, people, and experiences that populate your days. When you dwell on fear, lack, and defeat, those inner declarations shape the stage of your life with matching scenes, for the world is but a mirror faithfully reflecting your inner dialogue. Likewise, when you choose to engage in words of confidence, abundance, and love, you summon these very qualities into being. The law is impartial, responding only to the vibration of your inner speech, whether it serves your good or your despair. Life does not originate from circumstances pressing upon you, but from the steady stream of words flowing within you. To change the echo, you must change the sound you send forth. Speak within as one already possessing your desire, and you will find your outer world harmonizing with this inner decree, for the echo cannot help but follow the word. Complaints and doubts plant seeds of failure, because every thought clothed in emotion carries the power to reproduce itself in form. When a man complains, he rehearses the very condition he wishes to escape, watering it with the energy of attention and fixing it deeper into the soil of his subconscious. Doubt does the same, for it denies the reality of the unseen fulfillment and calls forth delay, frustration, and defeat. The universe responds not to words alone, but to the conviction behind them. And every complaint is a confession of belief in lack, while every doubt is a declaration that the desired outcome is uncertain. These are seeds, and like all seeds, they grow after their kind. To persist in complaints is to invite life to echo back more reasons to complain. And to indulge doubt is to summon proof that one's faith was misplaced. Yet the same law that makes complaints dangerous makes faith powerful. If one would only turn the inner speech toward thanksgiving, confidence, and assumption, he would plant seeds of triumph instead of failure. Life must give harvest according to the seed sown, and the soil of imagination does not discriminate between weeds and flowers. It simply brings forth what has been planted. Silent speech is the root of every circumstance, because what you continuously declare within yourself becomes the unseen cause of what later appears before your eyes. Every man and woman lives in a world that is nothing more than the harvest of their private dialogue. Though invisible and unheard by others, your inner voice is the most powerful architect of destiny, carving out the shape of experience with every whispered thought. You may believe that circumstances arrive by chance, by fate, or by the actions of others. But look more closely, and you will find they spring from the steady stream of words you sustain in the depths of mind. When you silently rehearse conversations of defeat, rejection, or limitation, you are arranging the stage upon which these very experiences must come to pass. Life cannot help but echo the tones of your hidden monologue, for it is governed by law. If, on the other hand, you learn to discipline your inner talking, to clothe it in confidence, gratitude, and the conviction that your desire is already fulfilled, then you plant seeds that blossom as success, harmony, and abundance. Silent speech is not idle, it is creative, and it never rests. It is the constant current shaping moods, directing choices, attracting encounters, and drawing forth outcomes. To understand this is to gain mastery, for you no longer blame the outer world for your lot, but recognize the workshop of creation within. By watching your inner words and redirecting them with persistence, you uproot the causes of unwanted circumstances and replace them with life-giving decrees. Silent speech is the unseen prayer, the hidden prophecy, the true author of your tomorrow, and whatever you faithfully sustain within must one day become the scene. Without to change life, change your inner dialogue, for the voice you entertain within yourself is the script your world must obey. Man is forever talking to himself, weaving unseen conversations in the quiet of thought. Yet he seldom recognizes that these inner words are the blueprint of his external reality. Every event, every relationship, every condition of life is born from the steady stream of dialogue carried on in imagination. What you whisper to yourself, whether in hope or in fear, becomes the command your subconscious mind accepts and expresses in form. If your days are filled with conflict, notice how often you argue within. If you feel lack, observe the silent complaints that echo in your mind. Life is but the mirror, faithfully reflecting the words spoken in the depths of silence. The power lies in the discovery that you are not bound to continue the old conversation. You may, this very moment, choose to assume a new inner tone, to speak to yourself as though your desire were already realized. If health is your aim, imagine conversations that reflect vitality and strength. If prosperity is your goal, let your inner speech be rich with thanksgiving and confidence. If love is your longing, rehearse dialogues filled with harmony, joy, and union. Persist in this discipline, for it is persistence that impresses the subconscious and bends the outer world to your assumption. The inner dialogue is the secret meeting place between man and his future. When you speak within as one already possessing the thing desired, you unite yourself with the state of fulfillment, and that state must objectify itself in your world. The law is unfailing. To change the conversation is to change the prophecy. Refuse to indulge the voice of fear and complaint. Replace it with the voice of assurance and faith. As you make this shift, your outer life will begin to reveal opportunities, encounters, and circumstances that match the new patterns sustained within. Do not wait for evidence before changing the dialogue, for the evidence will come as the fruit of your inner sowing. Begin now to talk to yourself as the person you wish to be, and remain loyal to that voice. The outer world cannot resist the command of sustained inner speech, for it is the creative cause of all that appears as human, and speak from the state of the wish fulfilled. For this is the law by which the unseen becomes seen and the invisible takes form. The world you know today is not the result of chance, but the outpicturing of assumptions once held firmly within and spoken as though they were already true. Man is forever creating by the tone of his inner speech, yet few realize that their conversations with themselves are not idle fantasies, but the very seeds of reality. To assume the state of the wish fulfilled is to step boldly into the world of imagination and claim as present fact what reason and senses may still deny. It is to shift identity, to say within, I am already that which I desire to be, and to let every word that follows bear the fragrance of accomplishment rather than longing. When you speak from lack, you reinforce lack, for your words reveal the state you occupy. When you speak from fulfillment, even if nothing yet shows outwardly, you establish the pattern into which your world must harden. The law does not distinguish between truth and pretense. It only reflects the assumption you persistently hold. If your inner talk is filled with doubt, complaint, or waiting, then you have assumed the state of not having, and life will mirror this delay. But if your dialogue is filled with gratitude, assurance, and possession, then you have assumed the state of fulfillment, and reality will yield to your decree. Consider a man desiring health. If he continues to speak within as a sick and broken being, imagining conversations of pity or weakness, he binds himself to sickness. Yet, if he assumes health and speaks within as one vibrant and whole, imagining others congratulating him on his recovery, he has planted the seed of restoration, and nature must bear witness to his inner words. The same applies to wealth, to love, to success, to freedom. Every desire can be fulfilled if you dare to assume its reality and persist in speaking from that place. The key is persistence. For assumption must be more than a fleeting wish. It must become a dwelling place in consciousness. You are not commanded to labor in the outer world for results, but to faithfully maintain the inner atmosphere of accomplishment until it crystallizes into form. Speak to yourself as one already in possession of the life you long for. Let the conversations of your mind be filled with the joy of having rather than the frustration of waiting. Hear the voices of friends congratulating you. See their gestures of recognition. Feel the satisfaction of desires already attained. These inner experiences, though unseen by others, are the forces that shape your tomorrows. Do not concern yourself with the how, for the how belongs to the unseen intelligence that governs creation. Your task is only to assume and remain loyal to the inner state. Life will rearrange itself to make room for your assumption. For the outer world is obedient to the command of sustained inner talking. Whatever you dare to assume and speak from as though it were already true will one day stand before you as undeniable fact. Persist in inner conversations of success, for it is through repetition and loyalty to the unseen dialogue that the invisible becomes visible and the imagined takes on flesh. Every man is engaged in an unending dialogue within himself, whether he is conscious of it or not, and these silent exchanges are the builders of destiny. When the mind rehearses defeat, failure, and limitation, it is prophesying its own downfall, for life must echo the tones that are consistently entertained. Yet, when one chooses to nurture the language of triumph, achievement, and abundance, even in the absence of outward proof, he aligns himself with a law that never fails to return to him the harvest of his inner sowing. The power of persistence lies in the fact that the subconscious accepts as true that which is repeated with feeling and conviction. A fleeting thought has little force, but a sustained inner conversation, carried on as though it were a living reality, imprints itself upon the deeper mind and calls forth conditions to support it. This is why the wise do not waver between faith and doubt, but train themselves to remain steadfast in the assumption of success. They understand that every word spoken within is a command to the creative power, and that the outer world must conform to the sustained decree. Consider how the unsuccessful often sabotage themselves. They begin with hope, but soon slip back into murmuring, questioning, and contradicting their original vision. They plant seeds of success and then uproot them with doubt, never allowing the soil of imagination to bring forth its fruit. But he who persists, he who continues the conversation of success regardless of appearances, waters his vision daily until it matures into fact. Persistence is the bridge between the invisible seed and the visible harvest. To persist in inner conversations of success is to see yourself already victorious in the secret theater of imagination. It is to carry on dialogues in which others recognize your achievement, congratulate your progress, and admire your results. It is to hear within the words you long to hear without, and to repeat them until they become natural and effortless. This inner rehearsal is not idle fantasy, but the very process of creation, for the subconscious cannot distinguish between an imagined event vividly sustained and a physical event experienced. It accepts both as true and molds the outer world accordingly. Let no circumstance, no delay, no appearance of failure persuade you to abandon your inner conversation. Speak within as though the success were already yours, and remain loyal to that speech until it hardens into fact. Do not wait for evidence before you begin, for evidence is the fruit, not the seed. The seed is the persistent word spoken in silence, the unseen rehearsal of triumph. As you continue in this practice, the atmosphere of your mind shifts, your actions align, and unseen doors begin to open to confirm the truth of your assumption. Every success story is first a story told inwardly. The great have always seen themselves great before the world acknowledged it. They spoke to themselves in secret words of power, of vision, of accomplishment, and the world had no choice but to echo their persistence. So let your own dialogue be filled with the sound of victory, and persist until that sound reverberates in the theater of life. Gratitude must begin within, not after. For to wait until the evidence appears is to misunderstand the law of creation. The world is not the cause but the effect, not the master but the servant, and what it brings to you is nothing more than the outpicturing of your inner state. When you make gratitude dependent on outer events, you place yourself at the mercy of circumstance and confess that you are ruled by appearances. But when gratitude is cultivated within, before there is visible proof, you declare your independence from the senses and align yourself with the unseen reality of your desire already fulfilled. Gratitude is the recognition of possession, the inner acknowledgement that the thing longed for is already yours in consciousness. It is not a polite sentiment or a shallow courtesy, but a creative act that prepares the way for manifestation. When you give thanks inwardly, when you speak within as one already enriched, healed, loved, or successful, you are assuming the state of fulfillment, and that assumption is the seed from which the outer fact must grow. The soil of imagination responds faithfully to the seed planted, and gratitude is the water that nourishes it into expression. Consider how most people withhold gratitude until circumstances appear to justify it. They say, "I will be thankful when my situation improves, when I receive what I desire, when the evidence proves it is mine." Yet such a posture is powerless, for it is rooted in doubt and lack. They are confessing, "I do not yet have, I am still waiting, I am still lacking." And life faithfully mirrors this belief with delay and disappointment. True gratitude begins within, in the unseen world of assumption, and it is this inner thanksgiving that gives birth to the outer blessing. To practice gratitude before the fact is to live in the end, to clothe yourself in the feeling of fulfillment, and speak from the state of possession. If wealth is your desire, give thanks inwardly as one already prosperous. If health is your longing, rejoice within as though wholeness were already yours. If love is your aim, feel gratitude as one already cherished and complete. The power of gratitude lies not in its words alone, but in the conviction and emotion that accompany them. It is the attitude of the heart that declares, "It is done," and this declaration shapes the unseen into form. Gratitude within transforms the atmosphere of your mind. It dissolves fear, silences doubt, and replaces complaint with confidence. The moment you enter into thanksgiving, you shift your state of consciousness. And that shift is the very change needed for your world to rearrange itself. Outer events do not come to a man until he is inwardly prepared to receive them. And gratitude is the sign of that preparation. It is the evidence of faith, the inner witness that you believe your desire is already accomplished. Imagine two men with the same desire. One waits anxiously for proof, complains at every delay, and rehearses thoughts of lack. The other, though his senses deny it, gives thanks within as though the desire were already realized. One remains bound to waiting, the other steps into fulfillment. Inevitably, life will favor the second, for he has planted the seed of possession and watered it with gratitude. The outer world has no choice but to echo the conviction sustained within. This is the great secret. You cannot receive what you do not inwardly acknowledge. Gratitude is that acknowledgement, the acceptance of the gift unseen, but already yours in imagination. To withhold gratitude is to withhold the assumption, to confess that you are still waiting. To give thanks now is to claim possession, and to command life to reveal it. Gratitude must therefore begin within, not after, for it is the cause, not the result of fulfilled desire. It is the voice of faith speaking in the silence, declaring that the unseen is already accomplished, and by its persistence, it compels the outer world to bear witness. You prophesy your future through present self-talk. For every word spoken within is a seed sown in the fertile ground of imagination, destined to appear as form in the outer world. Man is constantly engaged in silent conversations, rehearsing scenes, answering unspoken questions, and shaping entire realities without lifting a finger. Though these inner talks may appear trivial, they carry tremendous weight, for they determine the atmosphere of mind in which you live and the conditions of life that surround you. You need not stand upon a stage or speak aloud to declare your destiny. Your self-talk is already the prophecy that shapes tomorrow's experience. Most people believe their inner dialogue is harmless or inconsequential, yet the very opposite is true. Every complaint you sustain, every doubt you indulge, every fearful rehearsal of what might go wrong is a prophecy uttered, and the subconscious, impartial and creative, accepts it as instruction. When repeated, it ingrains itself deeply, and life begins to organize itself in perfect correspondence with the inner decree. If you consistently tell yourself that opportunities are scarce, that success is beyond your reach, or that relationships always fail, you are not merely describing a condition, you are calling it into being, you are foretelling the very circumstances you dread. Yet the same law that binds a man to failure, when misused, can exalt him to greatness when rightly applied. For just as negative self-talk creates obstacles, so positive, faith-filled dialogue constructs bridges to fulfillment. When you deliberately choose to speak within as though your desire were already attained, you are setting in motion the prophecy of success. Say to yourself, I am blessed, I am strong, I am capable, I am loved, I am prosperous. And sustain these words until they feel natural, until they become the familiar tone of your mind. Such talk, carried on faithfully, will attract conditions and people that harmonize with its spirit, for the world outside is compelled to mirror the prophecy spoken within. To prophecy is to declare what shall be, and your self-talk is doing this every moment, whether you are aware of it or not. The difference between the conscious and the unconscious creator lies in awareness. The unconscious man allows fear, worry, and doubt to write the script of his future, and he walks into it bewildered, wondering why life repeats the same disappointments. The conscious man recognizes the law, seizes control of his inner speech, and chooses to utter only those prophecies that align with his desired outcome. He knows that imagination, sustained through inner conversation, is the root of manifestation, and therefore he guards his words with diligence. Think of your mind as a sacred temple where words are incantations and declarations of power. Each time you speak within, you are shaping the unseen forces that govern your life. If your talk is careless, filled with contradiction, then your future will reflect confusion and delay. But if your talk is disciplined, clear and saturated with conviction, your future will reveal order, harmony and success. The law is impartial, it yields alike to positive or negative decree. It has no concern for your preference. It only brings forth the fruit of what you consistently assume and affirm. To practice deliberate self-talk is to take the reins of destiny into your own hands. Begin each day by speaking within as the person you wish to be. Carry on silent dialogues with friends congratulating you on your achievements. Hear the voices of others recognizing your progress. Imagine conversations that affirm your success. These rehearsals are not idle games, but the very acts of creation. The subconscious accepts them as true, and life must eventually conform. You are never waiting for the future. You are always shaping it now through the prophecy of present inner speech. Notice how quickly self-talk becomes habit. The more you indulge in fearful words, the more natural they feel, and the more evidence life supplies to support them. Likewise, the more you persist in words of strength and fulfillment, the more they take root until they become second nature, and life reflects them effortlessly. This is why persistence is essential, for the subconscious is impressed not by fleeting words but by the steady, consistent repetition of conviction. Persist long enough in a chosen self-talk, and it will harden into fact, for prophecy cannot remain unfulfilled when faithfully sustained. The great secret is that your world is not shaped by circumstance, but by your constant conversation with yourself. You are never a passive observer. You are always the prophet of your own life. Your words, clothed in imagination, are creative decrees. You cannot speak of defeat within and hope for victory without. You cannot rehearse poverty within and expect abundance to appear. You cannot sustain loneliness within and hope for companionship without. The law is precise and unfailing. As within, so without, as you prophesy, so shall it be. Therefore, take this moment to become aware of what you are saying to yourself. Catch the murmurs of doubt and replace them with declarations of faith. Catch the rehearsals of failure and turn them into rehearsals of triumph. Do not wait for proof to begin. Proof will come only as the harvest of your prophecy. Speak as one already blessed, already successful, already fulfilled, and remain steadfast in this speech until the world echoes it back to you. For indeed, you prophesy your future through present self-talk, and the words you utter in silence today are the destiny you will live tomorrow. Guard and beautify inner speech to transform reality. For within the silence of imagination lies the workshop of creation, where the unseen shapes itself into form. Every man lives in a world constructed not merely by his actions, but by the constant stream of dialogue he carries on with himself. You may look at circumstances and think they are imposed upon you by chance, by the will of others, or by forces beyond your control. But if you search deeply, you will discover they are nothing more than the reflection of what has been persistently spoken in the privacy of your own mind. The inner voice is the seed, and the outer world is the harvest. What you tell yourself becomes the prophecy that must be fulfilled, and thus to neglect this conversation is to surrender your creative power, while to guard and beautify it is to take command of destiny. Guarding inner speech means becoming aware of its content, for most people move through life rehearsing thoughts of doubt, fear, and complaint without ever realizing the damage being done. These words may never be spoken aloud, yet they are accepted by the subconscious as commands, and the subconscious, impartial and obedient, reproduces them faithfully in external experience. To allow destructive conversations to run unchecked is to plant weeds in the garden of imagination, and the harvest of such sowing is inevitable. Guarding your speech is the first step, for awareness allows you to stop the old pattern before it takes deeper root. You begin to notice how often you criticize yourself, how often you rehearse failure, how often you predict disappointment, and with this awareness comes the power to redirect the current of thought. Beautifying inner speech goes further, for it is not enough to silence the negative. You must replace it with words that uplift, strengthen, and embody the state you wish to live. To beautify is to adorn, to clothe the imagination in the richness of fulfilled desire. It is to speak within as though you were already the person you long to be, already living the life you dream of, already in possession of all you seek. These words, repeated with feeling and conviction, sculpt the inner atmosphere of mind until it becomes natural to dwell in the state of fulfillment. Life then responds by echoing this inner beauty in the form of harmonious relationships, prosperous opportunities, radiant health, and satisfying achievements. Imagine two individuals with similar desires. One allows his inner talk to drift into worry and self-doubt, constantly reminding himself of past failures, and imagining conversations where others dismiss his efforts. The other, though facing the same outer challenges, disciplines his mind to hear only words of encouragement and success, imagining dialogues where others admire his accomplishments and acknowledge his worth. Though unseen, the difference between their inner conversations is vast, and soon their lives reveal it. The first experiences repeated setbacks, confirming his hidden prophecy, while the second finds doors opening, opportunities arising, and support appearing as though by miracle. The law is impartial, it brings forth whatever is planted, whether beautiful or destructive. To guard and beautify inner speech is to accept responsibility for the hidden cause of your world. It is to recognize that creation begins not in action, but in imagination, not in effort, but in assumption. What you say to yourself in the stillness of thought is the truest form of prayer, and every prayer is answered according to its nature. If you pray with words of doubt, you receive after the likeness of doubt. If you pray with words of fulfillment, you receive after the likeness of fulfillment. The law is simple, yet its results are profound, for by mastering the inner conversation, you master the outer experience. Persistence is essential, for the mind has long been trained to wander into old patterns of fear and complaint. To guard speech means to watch diligently, to catch the stray thought before it grows strong, to redirect the conversation back to harmony and faith. To beautify speech means to persist even when the senses deny, even when appearances contradict, for appearances are only the shadows cast by former conversations. The new dialogue, sustained with patience, will eventually dissolve the old shadow and project a new scene upon the screen of life. Beautifying inner speech also means filling it with gratitude, for gratitude is the recognition of possession. When you give thanks within, not after the evidence but before, you declare that the gift is already yours, and life responds by unveiling it. Gratitude transforms complaint into blessing, worry into peace, and longing into fulfillment. To speak within as one already grateful is to dwell in the end, and dwelling in the end is the secret of manifestation. The practice of beautifying inner speech can be simple yet profound. Each morning, before engaging with the outer world, turn inward and set the tone of your inner dialogue. Speak to yourself as one already blessed, already successful, already whole. Imagine conversations where others recognize your achievement, where you hear words of love, admiration, and respect. Throughout the day, guard against the intrusion of doubt or fear, and when they arise, replace them immediately with words aligned with your chosen vision. At night, before sleep, review the day not as it was but as you wish it to have been, carrying on the inner dialogue of success and fulfillment until it sinks into the subconscious. Over time, this guarding and beautifying of speech becomes second nature. The old negative patterns lose their grip, and the new, harmonious dialogue becomes the natural state of mind. As this inner beauty grows, it radiates outward into your life, transforming relationships, circumstances, and opportunities. The world begins to reflect the inner atmosphere of confidence, peace, and joy that you have sustained. No effort is wasted, for every word spoken within carries creative power, and persistence in beauty ensures a harvest of beauty. Guard and beautify inner speech to transform reality, for your world is nothing more than the mirror of your sustained inner dialogue. The unseen words you repeat to yourself shape the unseen forces that govern your life, and those forces, impartial and obedient, bring forth the likeness of the conversation you persist in holding. When you choose to guard against destructive talk and beautify your speech with faith, gratitude, and fulfillment, you step into mastery of creation, and your reality transforms in harmony with the words you have spoken in silence.